muscle twitching. "So, Mom and Dad," Eli said in a gentle, light-hearted tone. "Thank you for giving me the best role model I could wish for." He hoisted his diploma toward me. "This is yours as much as mine, Alex. Actually, it's more yours, because you gave up your own chance to be a kid while raising us." Whispers rang through the gathering, and our extended family members turned to face my parents. Aunt Diane's mouth was open. Uncle Steve was shaking his head slowly, connecting dots from years of missed family gatherings, and the applause began slowly, then built to thunder. After the ceremony, our relatives swarmed us, not our parents, just us. Grandma grabbed my face in her weathered hands, sobbing apologies for not noticing sooner. "We thought you were just being a helpful big brother," she wept. My parents fled before the reception ended, their carefully maintained image shattered beyond repair. But they weren't finished with me. 48 hours later, I was helping Lily practice for her dance recital when the doorbell rang. Two women in pink suits stood on my porch, CPS badges glinting in the afternoon sun. My blood turned to ice water as they pushed past me like I wasn't even there, documenting everything with phones and notepads. The medication chart I'd created to track Eli's ADHD prescriptions became evidence of unauthorized medical decisions, and the birthday calendar with everyone's doctor's appointments assumed parental authority without legal standing. Even the completely stocked refrigerator was somehow twisted into overcompensation for negligence. Everything immediately made sense because while they made calls regarding emergency placement orders, the woman remarked, "Yes, the biological parents called in the complaint. They're willing to resume full custody right now." Lily grabbed my leg while CPS agents photographed her artwork on the refrigerator. Her tiny fingers dug into my jeans while she whispered something I couldn't quite hear. The taller worker bent down, her phone camera clicking quickly, and the woman straightened up and typed something into her tablet. I watched her fingers move across the screen, documenting Lily's behavior as potential coaching by siblings. My stomach churned as I realized they were twisting everything, including a terrified child seeking comfort. Through the window, I spotted Dad's Mercedes pulling into the driveway, and he stepped out, wearing a charcoal suit I'd never seen before, his phone pressed to his ear. Mom emerged from the passenger side, already typing on her phone. Within seconds, her Facebook post arrived in my feed notification. "Fighting for my babies against false accusations. Prayer warriors needed." I glanced at the post while the CPS workers continued their inspection. Mom had tagged 37 people and somehow managed to misspell Eli's middle name as Michael instead of Michael, the same middle name she had given him after her father. Dad strode through the front door without knocking, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had been practicing. While pulling documents from his briefcase, he rattled off something about parental rights and due process, and the CPS workers barely looked up from their tablets. I tried to explain the medication chart to the shorter worker, pointing out how I had color-coded Eli's ADHD medications to prevent missed doses. My hands shook as I showed her the backup alarms I'd set on my phone. She asked for power of attorney documents, and the words caught in my throat. We'd never thought to get any, because I'd been handling everything since I was 13. Then Grandma's car screeched into the driveway and she burst through the door, demanding to take the children right away. Her face was flushed and she kept pressing her hand to her chest. Then she swayed slightly, reaching for the wall. I knew the signs. Her blood sugar was rapidly dropping, and she'd need food as well. I looked between her and the filing cabinet where I kept years of documentation. I chose Grandma, grabbed her medication from her purse, and rushed to the kitchen for orange juice and crackers. Behind me, I heard Mom's syrupy sweet voice promising Lily a puppy if she came to live with Mommy and Daddy. She mentioned a pink bedroom, all Lily's own. Lily's little voice resonated across the room. But where will Alex sleep? Mom's pause lasted a beat too long before she launched into descriptions of a princess bed and toys. I studied Grandma in the kitchen chair, watching her color return to normal while precious minutes ticked by. By the time I returned to the living room, our parents had spread like a virus throughout the neighborhood. Mom had cornered the Millers by their mailbox, gesturing wildly as she painted her picture of a troubled oldest child who'd overstepped boundaries. Dad stood on the front lawn with our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Lee, handing her a Starbucks cup while shaking his head sadly. My phone buzzed at the same time with 3 different crises. Our landlord wanted to know why the rent was 2 days late, and the CPS workers demanded documentation of my employment history and financial records, all within 10 minutes. I chose the rent first, and rushed to my laptop to transfer money from the emergency fund I'd built up through years of part-time work. The late fee would eat into our grocery budget, but keeping a roof over our heads was more important. As I hit submit on the payment, I noticed the bank teller processing it was Linda, from Mom's MLM downline, the same woman who'd been pushing essential oils at last month's PTA meeting. The emergency lawyer consultation would cost $300. Dad's composure crumbled when Lily raced past him to get her beloved elephant, calling him Mr. Tyler instead of Dad. His face turned pale, then red, and his hands trembled as he pressed them against his temples. The CPS workers paused their paperwork to watch him hyperventilate into a paper bag Mom produced from her purse. Later, while Dad recovered on the couch with Mom rubbing his back, Eli pulled me aside in the hallway. His eyes were red-rimmed but defensive, and he told me that Dad had apologized for missing all of his baseball games, that he was trying now, and that people deserve second chances. I bit my tongue until it bled, tasting copper, while Eli defended the man who had chosen business trips over birthday parties. But I couldn't kill Eli's hope just yet. The CPS workers requested medical records for both kids, so I retrieved the thick folder from my filing cabinet, which I'd kept since taking over their care. As I flipped through it, a faded emergency room report from Lily's 3rd birthday caught my eye. She had fallen off her bike and needed stitches. The signature line showed my name as the guardian who'd brought her in, proof that I'd been parenting since I was 15. I quickly photocopied it, adding it to my growing stack of evidence, and the timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. I remembered that night Mom passed out in her wine-stained bathrobe, and Dad was in Houston for a conference. I was holding Lily's hand while she received 4 stitches in her chin, singing her favorite song to keep her calm. That evening, after the CPS workers had left with their tablets full of twisted documentation, I realized Lily's comfort blanket, which she had slept with every night since birth, was still at our parents' house. I waited until dark, then crept across the property line. The fence was only 4 feet high, and I'd climbed it dozens of times over the years, retrieving balls and toys. But as I swung my leg over the top, a motion sensor triggered. The Ring doorbell camera swiveled to face me, its blue light blinking steadily, recording everything. The next morning, Eli's teacher called, explaining that she needed his academic records from previous years to process his college applications. The records required parental authorization, specifically Mom's authorization, as she was the parent listed on all school forms. I begged Mom to sign the release forms. She smiled and said she'd be pleased to help once the misunderstanding was rectified, once I recognized I'd gone too far, and when I quit striving for family reunification. Aunt Diane arrived that afternoon with coffee and anxious eyes, and she set me down at the kitchen table, where I'd spent years teaching Eli multiplication tables. Aunt Diane's words felt rehearsed as she reminded me of how I'd acted when Grandpa died, how I'd refused help and tried to handle everything alone. I was 8 years old at the time, and our parents were in Vegas, unreachable. I'd made sandwiches for Eli and Lily, kept them calm and told them stories until Grandma could fly in from Florida. But Aunt Diane's version painted me as controlling and unable to accept help, just like now. Mom's Facebook campaign grew by the hour, with 147 likes and dozens of supportive comments on her post about healing our family. When I tried to respond with facts, explaining the years of neglect, my comment was screenshotted and reported as harassment, and my account was suspended within hours. The lawyer I'd consulted sent a formal letter to my parents' attorney, who responded quickly. My daily texts checking on Eli and Lily were being documented as a harassment campaign against a family attempting to reunify, and each concerned message became evidence of my inability to respect boundaries. Dad still had control over the kids' health insurance through his employer, so when Eli's ADHD medication ran out, I called in a refill, only to have it denied, because Dad's insurance wouldn't approve it without his explicit consent. He texted me his terms: stop this nonsense, admit you'd overreached, and he'd approve the medication. Eli's prescription would expire in 3 days. I spent 6 hours at the pharmacy trying to navigate insurance overrides and prior authorizations. When I woke up crying from a stress dream, Still in the pharmacy waiting area, the pharmacist exchanged worried glances with her colleague, and I saw her type something into the